and all the other nonsense that they believe it is their responsibility to intrude into the lives of people. He handed me one of his pamphlets as well. If he has the right to hand me tracts, then I have an equal right to hand him something. He was in for a surprise because I carry your BE tracts in my wallet. I must have been muttering something under my breath about the nerve of these people, because a young woman who works in a store nearby overheard me and came up and said she was in full agreement. She went on to tell me that she lived in a small 4-square block housing development with 4 fundamentalist churches competing against each other and relentlessly trying to have her join their church. Each of them, according to her, is somewhat in disagreement with the others. She indicated she'd like to be able to turn the tables on them somehow, or at least become more knowledgeable on their religious positions. I mentioned to her that I handed the preacher a couple of pamphlets on biblical errors and questions. She said she'd like to see one, so I gave her my last 2. I believe she's just out of high school. She's never heard of free thought, rationalism, or humanism, and doesn't know where to go for information. The local library is of no help. I agreed to help her and gave her a few issues of your publication, and will continue to help her as long as she so desires. To this I replied, an incredible number of people are in the same predicament as the woman you referred to, and that makes your efforts all the more worthwhile and very valuable. Keep up the good work. Our third and final letter is somewhat longer and focuses on some extra biblical issues of great concern to people opposed to religious evangelizing at their expense. The writer is from Georgia and says, "Thank you for the back issues of BE." That's our publication. "I had very little religious indoctrination in my life, and I never wanted what I got. The religious fundamentalist types who I've come in contact with are always ready to change that. Your work has given me the ammunition that I need to do combat on their own turf. With your permission, I'd like to excerpt some of your work and have packets made up for Bible toters to study. Your name, address, and telephone number will be shown in all the excerpts in hopes of generating interest in your work. I think that your approach to education on the Bible is an excellent one. Considering the recent shift on the U.S. Supreme Court, education on the errors and misinformation in the Bible seems to be the way to go. Every public school Bible club should have your material and study it." To this I said, "Please feel free to make up packets you deem desirable, as long as the recipients are made aware of the source. We are more than glad to provide you with information when you advertise BE. It's interesting that you mentioned your contacts with some fundamentalists, since I was visited recently by some Jehovah's Witnesses. I invited them in, but was unable to maintain their presence longer than half an hour. Clearly my questions were disturbing, and they yearned to exit. Their leading spokesman didn't know the Bible very well, since he cited Isaiah as a source for a messianic prophecy that actually is found in Micah. When I brought this to his attention, he seemed rather perturbed. They were completely unreceptive to my suggestion that we have additional meetings and further discussions. Near the end of our encounter, their leading spokesman said he didn't feel like he was getting anywhere and that his time could be better spent elsewhere. Translated, that means, although I'm not influencing you, you're beginning to shake my beliefs, so I better get out of here while the getting's good. These people take advantage of the ignorance, problems, and depression of others. That becomes evident when they are confronted by someone who knows their material better than they do. As the witnesses were going out their door, their leading spokesman turned to me and said, "You know, everybody down at our Kingdom Hall knows about you." I asked him how he knew that. And he said that others had been there before, including himself. Perhaps he was, but I certainly don't remember him. I'd already suspected something was afoot several days earlier when one of their scouts, who are usually less knowledgeable, came to my door and said, we're willing to come here and discuss the Bible and how it's the Word of God, but we're not going to come here to discuss Bible contradictions. How she knew I was interested in Bible contradictions was rather puzzling, to say the least. Apparently, those people keep track of their visitations, discuss encounters, and retain mental images of houses to avoid. As they were leaving, I told them, if I had a book that I was sure was the perfect Word of God, I would be willing to discuss it with anyone at any time or place of their choosing and answer any questions as long as they deemed desirable. In any event, it was clear that they weren't going to listen to any data critical of the Bible, no matter how correct or logical it may be. While attacking the Trinity, their main spokesman must have said it was important to be logical at least 10 times. Yet he carefully avoided the very logic which he claimed to practice. Every time he was stumped by a biblical dead end, he would fall back on blind faith in the Bible as the ultimate truth. In essence, their position was, it was quite clear, our minds are made up, don't try to confuse us with any facts. People like that bear out the truth that was stated in our publication many years ago. Namely, it is vital to get people indoctrinated, or brainwashed is a better term, when they are young, vulnerable, and incapable of critical thought. Years ago, I was told that one church in particular claims that if you give them your child until he is age 8, you can have him from then on because he's now theirs.